Scott Fischman has been a staple of both the live and online tournament circuits since before the post-moneymaker surge in poker popularity, and his almost $2.2 million in live tournament earnings have earned him a legendary status in the poker world. The ex-poker dealer's online persona, Empty Seat 88, is equally well known, and he is given much street cred from the notoriously hard-to-please internet poker crowd. His proven skill and fan-favorite status have earned him sponsorship from Full Tilt Poker. That same appeal has earned him invites to 4 NBC Heads Up championships, all 4 of which he cashed in. We've got Scott on the phone with us today to talk about the recent NBC Heads Up competition, about online poker versus live poker, and about what makes him a successful player. All right, well, first off, congrats on cashing in your 4th straight NBC Heads Up.
Thank you.
You and Huck Seed are the only 2 to have cashed in all 4.
That's right.
What's the structure like in these events?
Well, they're getting worse and worse.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, the first 3 years, I think it was the same structure, which was a little too fast anyway. We started with 20,000 chips in the first round, and blinds started out at 100, 200, 15-minute levels, and sometimes they double, like the blinds, they straight up double. Sometimes they go up incrementally. But, I mean, we were all kind of aware that obviously we're not going to have any 5-hour matches. It's on TV, you know, this and that, which is fine. Like, I understood. But in the first few years, you could still have a match that went 2.5 hours, you know. There was a few that were kind of marathons and whatever. They always got pretty fast at the end, but, you know, that's to be expected after an hour and a half of playing heads up, you know, fine. Okay, so it's a crapshoot. But this year, they decided to start the first round, same stacks, same minutes, 15, but they started us off at 153, which may not seem like that big of a jump. However, the way they do these heads-up tournaments at Caesars is that you accumulate your chips. So let's say you win the first round, the second round starts at 40,000, and then the next round will start at 80,000, and then the structure keeps going up, but they don't keep the same ratio. So let's say the first level is 153, and then 2-4, 3-6. You would expect the second round to be, you know, 3-6, 4-8, 6-12 or whatever, but they start skipping levels, so it would go 3-6, 3-6, 4-8, 8-16, you know, so they skip that level in the middle, so then it becomes exponentially worse and worse as you go up 15 minutes at a time, and it just ended up being that this year's rounds were ridiculously bad.
Yeah, I was keeping up with the live updates on cardplayer.com, and it was just really amazing me how quickly it seemed that people were busting out, and so now it's making a lot more sense. And do you think that may have something to do with the kind of interesting Sami Farha versus Doyle Brunson match, where they just basically kept pushing all in pre-flop every time?
Well, I mean,
like, was it kind of a statement?
I don't know that they had that in mind. I think maybe those two have a lot of history. I didn't really see the match, but I know in my matches, you know, my general strategy when playing heads up is to use the first couple rounds as maybe the first 2 levels as only 15 minutes each to get a feeling out, to, you know, maybe invest. I like to do information calls, so I'll call on the river with no hand just to see my opponent's hand, if it was an important hand. You know, if he makes a small enough bet, I'll pay it off just to see, and maybe I'll give away 5 to 10% of my stack just to gain some really valuable information. However, this year, I mean, you cannot do that. Risking 10% of your stack at any point is just so huge. So a lot of the matches just came down to, you know, you can never fold top pair. I would be willing to guess that not many people were folding top pair ever.
Yeah.
I know there was a big hand with Grinder and Huck Seed in their match, where it was like top pair bottom kicker versus top pair middle kicker, and like I was talking to Grinder, and he was like, you know, what do you think about that hand? Should I have called there? And I was like, well, you know, you knew you were beat. You kind of felt like you were beat, but dude, the way this tournament rolls, he had like 7-8 on a 7-4-6 deuce board or something like that. And I go, well, you just can't get off. You just can't fold that hand.
Yeah.
You know, and so it took a lot of the skill out of it. But, you know, then again, it's on TV, NBC. You know, I can understand from their perspective that they don't want 3-hour matches. I mean, I'm not going to – that's something that I would normally complain about, but I don't in these type of tournaments, because this is one of the tournaments actually where they're, you know, we're getting some good bonus money for being on TV, and, you know, it's not like all these other TV tournaments where we're putting up the money. The prize pool is completely, you know, everything is just us, and we're taking it up the rear with the structure. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's some side benefits for us to be playing these, and, you know, I can't really complain about it too much.
Okay. Well, what was the key to winning your first matches this time around then?
Well,
if you couldn't do the information calls.
Right. No, I mean, my first match against Todd, I wish it was on TV. I wish there had been hole cards, because the guy never made a pair, I think. Like, it was, I don't think I lost, I think the biggest pot I lost to him the entire match, I lost like 2 big blinds, you know. So he would limp, I would check, I have 1 big blind in the pot, then I would check call one blind, you know, a minimum bet, and then I would either win the pot after that, or I would check fold if I had, you know, he won 4 hands or something. It was pretty sick. I think he just never had a hand, and so there wasn't really much skill involved with beating him in that match. And then my second match against Jamie Gold, wow. I thought 100% that I was going to lose. I'm shocked that I beat him. We came out early. We started and now we're starting at 3 and 600 with 40,000, and, you know, starting at 3 and 600, those pots can get real big real fast. Mm-hmm. And I was basically, I felt like Todd Brunson. I wasn't making anything. Jamie was running over me, and he had me down to 15,000. So he had a really big lead on me, and he had like 65. I had 15 or something like that, and I started talking to him. You know, that's one of the biggest assets when playing against Jamie, is that he tells you what his hand is pretty often. And he wasn't saying anything for the first 25 minutes. So I was like, you know, hey, how come you're not showing me any cards? How come you're not talking? And he was like, well, I respect your game too much, and, you know, whatever. So then I was like, well, that sucks, you know. And but I figured if I just kept on him, he would eventually open up a little. And that's what I did. I just decided to keep chatting him up, and eventually, you know, I made a couple hands, he played a couple bad, I played a couple good, got the match back to even, and then before you know it, I just had the upper hand, and it went my way, thankfully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, which is more challenging in your opinion, playing at a full table or playing heads up?
As far as difficulty, I think they're just both quite difficult overall as far as poker, but there's just different skill sets that you're used. There's different mindsets. Playing in a full ring game is just more math, more patterns, you know, lots more to think about, different things to evaluate. Playing heads up, you know, your cards, your actual cards and actual strength of hands is maybe the 3rd or 4th thing on the list of most important things to evaluate. So I think it's more of a mind game. It's more of a, you know, chess type of a aspect, you know. Ring games is more about your hand and how good your hand is.
Well, when I talk to a lot of pros about this, they pretty much unequivocally say that heads up is a lot more skill-based, and ring games is pretty much playing your standard game, a full ring, I should say. Mm-hmm. So do you disagree with that to a certain extent, then?
No, I mean, it's just a different skill. It's not that there's more skill. It's just a different skill. And, in fact, I mean, I'm more my skill comes in more from the psychology of poker. You know, I think, he thinks, I think, less of how to play your cards, less of looking at your 2-hole cards and then reacting. And that's what real full game poker is. It's looking at your cards and reacting to the factors, whereas heads up is reacting to the factors, reacting to your opponent, reacting to mindsets, then looking at your cards, you know.
Okay. Well, a lot of pros have told me that they don't think it's possible to make a living playing tournament poker for 99.5% of the population, and that cash games are a much more stable income. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that, and I've had those type of thoughts, but I quickly let those thoughts go because, in my opinion, playing poker for a living, gambling for a living, as concerned to anything, the key really is just learning yourself, learning how you yourself react to certain situations that may come up in any gambling session, knowing, you know, what things are going to set you off, what things are optimal for you, you know, and so whether cash games are a better thing for you or whether tournaments are a better thing for you, just really relies on you yourself. And I personally, I guess in their opinions, would be in the 0.5% because cash games are just not right for me. I don't like the fact that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I need some structure in my game. I need it to be more of a game, you know, of a beginning, middle, end. There's some thing I'm playing for, you know what I mean? Whereas cash games, it's just like showing up to work, 9 to 5, waking up, making all the right decisions all the time, basing all of everything on, you know, math and what's best and what's the best thing to do right now in this pot. And it's just not right for me. And I think that if people were to use my mindset more, they could be successful in multi-table tournaments. I just think that the majority of people that play poker are geared towards thinking about the money so often, so the cash games are better for them. You know, when you're playing cash games for a living, you know, you set some bankroll standards, you set cost of living standards, you set all those things up in your head, and then it's way easier to accomplish those goals when playing cash games because you can have a real strong influence on whether or not you accomplish those goals, whereas playing tournaments, you know, you have those same goals. I have the cost of living in my mind. I have my bankroll in mind. I have all these things in my mind, but you could go on droughts. You can go on, you know, runs where you never accomplish those goals successfully. But, you know, and that peace with knowing that I will be able to accomplish those goals as long as I continue to play, you know. So it's just a personal preference thing, in my opinion. I think that if you are in the right frame of mind, you can be successful and make money continuously and with stable income in multi-table tournaments.
Yeah. And I kind of suspected in the back of my mind, which is why I asked you the question, that maybe a lot of these people that don't think it's a viable source of income to play purely tournament poker,
right,
maybe it's because they're ultimately losing players and they just have that predisposition.
They're just approaching it wrong. It's just approach. It's just how you view gambling, how you view, like a lot of people when they gamble, they want to make money today. They want to increase their bankroll continuously. They don't like maybe big downswings, and they don't like to play long sessions. I mean, I think for people that like to play really, really long time, tournaments are better because, you know, all that tournament poker is just a continuous session all the time. Whereas cash games, you know, you have to get in and out of games when they're good. You have to stop sessions a lot more often when you're up or down a certain amount, and there's just so much more, you know, factors that go into how long you should play.
Right.
You know, so it just doesn't work for me.
Well, is the difference, you're both an online and live player, you're known very well in both spheres. So is there a difference between predominantly live players and predominantly online players, or is it more pronounced than everyone makes? Is it less pronounced than everyone makes it out to be?
I think that there is a huge difference. I think that the game is completely different. It's the same. It's pretty much the same answer, though. If you are an online player or a live player, all you have to do is learn. It's just like a different game. It's basically one is no limit hold'em and one is limit Omaha high-low. You know, if you want to be good at limit Omaha high-low, you have to do certain things. You have to learn the game a different way. If you want to be good at no limit hold'em, you have to do certain things and learn the game a different way. So I think, yes, they are very different. They are that different in comparing the differences. But anybody can be good at both. It just takes a really long time to evaluate the differences between the two, you know?
Well, and like I said, you're really a really big part of both worlds. So do you have vastly different playing styles in both venues? How do they differ?
And it's not even vastly different playing styles, so to speak. It's more of different skill sets. Like when I play live poker, the obvious things are, you know, you're looking at people, you're reading people, you're, you know, just evaluating situations differently. It takes there's like a time warp, you know, so basically things go so much faster when you're playing online. So you have to realize that the time comparison between the two is so much different. So that being said, like one level of play in a live tournament is 1 hour generally, whereas one level of play online is 10 or 15 minutes. So getting those fractions, being able to, I can't find the word I'm looking for, but being able to compare the two and realize the differences and then put your mindset correctly to reflect that. So, you know, you can't get bored, basically, in a live tournament after not playing a hand for an hour and a half, because that's just like sitting out for 15 minutes online.
Right.
So that's the big hang-up that I think a lot of people get, you know, when playing. It's just, it is really different, though. I mean, really, really, really different.
Well, since you acknowledge the fact that there's such a big difference between the two kinds of players,
right,
do you have an opinion on who you think is an overall better set of tournament players?
I think that at this point, the online players are better overall tournament players, but really only for the fact that there's so many different options available online. Like there's rebuy tournaments every day. There's
deep stack turbo.
Every kind of form of poker online every day that you have to learn and be good at. Whereas if we started a tournament tomorrow at Bellagio and it was a 1 rebuy 1 add-on tournament, okay, there's like probably 8 to 10 different type of skills that you need in a 1 rebuy 1 add-on tournament than you would in a regular tournament, and live players just won't know that. Whereas online players, they know how to evaluate those kind of tournaments when there's these big differences. Like a really good online player will be able to quickly and effectively evaluate the best course of action for playing a rare tournament, a weird type of game. It's more about, you know, you have this game. It's a video game. If you just look at everything as a video game, the online players know how to beat all these video games, where the live players, you know, they're like, oh, this is different. And it just seems like it takes them a lot longer to figure those type of things out, if they ever do.
Well, how do you prepare the day before or the day of a big tournament? Like, what rituals do you have, or what ways do you prepare yourself mentally and physically?
I've had a lot of different approaches to getting ready for big tournaments, and they've changed a bit over the years. In the first couple of years that I was playing, I used to like to not get much sleep, drink lots of water, try and stay a bit hungry, so not really have that big of meals, because, you know, you don't want your stomach doing somersaults on you when you're playing and stuff like that. And I always thought it was just really important to be hyper-focused and that type of mindset when I'm going to a big tournament, whereas nowadays I need a full night's rest. Well, whether it's I'm getting older or whatever, I need a full night's rest. I need a nice big breakfast. I like to be a little bit more sociable. I don't know. It's just different. And being prepared for a tournament, it just all relates back to knowing yourself, knowing how you're going to react, knowing what's going to be best for you. It's pretty much the common theme of all my poker advice.
Okay. Well, is there ever a point where how often does it occur that you just don't play a tournament because you don't feel prepared for it? Even though you're already there for it?
No. I mean, I would pretty much play. I'm pretty much playing. If I plan to play something, I play it. And, I mean, online, though, however, I do skip a lot of days online if I'm not feeling it, quote unquote. But live tournaments, another thing that I do to prepare that I'm just now thinking of, like if there's a tournament in, Sheboygan and it's the main event, it's 5 preliminary tournaments and then a main event, I'll make sure that I get there to play the preliminary events, to get settled in a hotel, to get used to the time differences, to get used to the staff of the tournament, to get used to the structures of the tournament, to get used to, how cold or hot it's going to be in the room, to get used to all these little nuances of playing in a new place. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I do to prepare, actually, for these tournaments. I make sure I get there in advance and feel it out. If you just show up for the main event, and then you get there, and then they have the F-word penalty, and, right away, boom, you say the F-word, which, I mean, you have no idea that they have, because there's some crazy rules at all these places, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, what's the worst moment of your poker career, and how did you deal with it?
Oh, man, the worst moment, I mean, it would have to be when I was at the final table of the 25K WPT at Bellagio this past year, and we were 8 players left, and I lost aces to Walrus's queens when he went runner flush with his queen. And first was like $4 million, and eighth was $250,000, and I was just in shock. I mean, I still really haven't dealt with it. I still think all the time, because I'm in the process of buying another house now, and I was just thinking, man, if I wouldn't lost those aces, you know what I mean? You just constantly, that's the one thing that comes up in my head pretty often.
And you're basically visualizing $4 million slipping through your fingers.
Yeah, which I normally don't think like that. When I'm playing tournaments, I normally don't think about the money that way, but this was such a huge amount of money.
It'd be hard to get over.
$250,000 is a lot of money, but I've had that kind of score numerous times, and it doesn't. When I make $250,000 in a day, it doesn't change what I do that night. I don't go party. I don't go celebrate. That's another thing. Being a successful tournament player, when you win money, you cannot celebrate, because that is paying you for all those hours that you spent losing money, and now. Yeah. My hourly rate is determined by this one score that I make once a month, and if I go celebrate after I win, then I'm just throwing money away, So winning $250,000, I didn't party, didn't celebrate at all, wasn't even really that happy. Winning $1 million or $4 million would have been a different story.
Well, last question I have for you is, can you give us some advice on the single best thing that someone can do to become a better poker player, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my biggest tips would be to control your environment, because that's, especially being online, this is more geared toward online players. Mm-hmm. One of your biggest assets as an online player is that you have the capability to control everything around you. You have the capability of controlling how many screens you have, how loud your sounds are, what color the backgrounds are, and all these things that you can control. You should take advantage of all those things. You can turn your phone off or whatever you need to do to make you a better poker player. You should definitely take advantage of all those things. And I mean, this goes for game selection, just controlling everything about, be a control freak, you know. If somebody sits down on your left and you don't like them, get up and change games. You know, you can. Whereas if you're playing live poker, you can't really control all those things. You know, it's if you're in a live game and somebody sits on your left, and you can't just get up and get in a new game. There's only one or two games in the whole casino that are of that type. You know, so my number one piece for online players is just, and don't settle. Don't just, you know, if it's something that you can do, then do it.
Well, tell that to all the guys that have girlfriends that won't leave them alone while they're playing online poker.
Exactly. Or they're chatting on Instant Messenger and watching TV and whatever. I mean, just if you come over to my house to play online, first of all, I'm going to be a dick because, you know, I'm going to tell you, turn your phone off, turn the lights off, turn the TV off. You know, all these. There's a lot of rules that you have to live by if you come to play online at my house, and I'm not going to settle. And I don't care if people think that I'm a dick or whatever. Whatever, that's fine. Go play at your house then. You can control everything you want over there.
All right, well, that's perfect. I really appreciate you doing this interview with us.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you guys for watching the Online Zone on Card Player TV.